Hi, I'm Barry Herniman and I want to introduce you to the amazing art of acrylics. I'll be starting off with some very simple exercises in mixing the paints so you can get a feel of how this paint reacts either on the paper or the canvas. Once we have these exercises under our belt, then we'll be moving on and I'll be showing you how to paint some finished landscapes. So let's get cracking. Okay, let's get started. The first thing you're going to need is a suitable palette. I'm using a palette paper pad. Fabulous stuff, really. It's literally paper that's been primed with some sort of varnish, which means it's impenetrable to water and everything else. And the paints just sit on top of this, and you can move them about beautifully. Be careful. There are lots of different palettes out on the market. Stay wet palettes, very nice, but they're also expensive. So if you're starting out, I would suggest you go for one of these palette paper pads, which really, they do the job. So if you're starting out, obviously there's a lot of money involved. So I would say it's great. And also the other thing is, as soon as you've finished with your with all the old paints and they've all gone hard, you just rip the top sheet off with the next one. So okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to start preparing and mixing paint. I know it sounds pretty ordinary, but getting the right consistencies of paint is really good. And I hate over mixing, I really do. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some blobs of colour onto our palette. So we've got a nice bright yellow, then a nice blob of Indian yellow. There we go. Don't overdo the paint at this stage. We don't need. I'm aware that paints are rather expensive, so we don't want to waste too much. And of course, once the paint's dry, it's unusable. It's not like watercolors or gouache that you literally, once they're dry, you can spray some water on them, and they'll come back to being moist again. But these aren't. So there we go. So we've got 5 colours there. So we've got a bright yellow, a not so bright yellow, a brown, a cobalt turquoise, and a nice green. So there we're going to do. So what I want to do now is I'm going to use this long-haired, this long flat acrylic brush. You can see it's Pro Art Sterling. Lovely little brush, number 2. And it's a great one for mixing. So I'm literally going to mix with water. I'm going to take a blob of water and I'm going to put some of that. There we go. Can you see it's a nice juicy mix of colour. There we go. So that's the bright yellow. So we're going to put a nice wodge of colour into there. Okay, just add some water with it. The beauty of using these wonderful modern acrylics, these artist acrylics, is you can reduce them down with water. In the old days it was a case of never reduce your paints down too much with water, because A, you lose the chroma, which is the intensity of the colour, and B, it just doesn't stick or adhere. Well, I'm sorry, but I've been painting now for a good few years using these acrylics, and they're absolutely superb. So there you go. Buy less, buy the best is what I always say. So there we go, we've got a lovely Indian yellow there, and I'm cleaning the brush each and every time to make sure that I don't sully any of the colours. But I'm mixing, look at this, look at that, look at those colours, aren't they gorgeous? So we just mix them along there, there we go, keep that, okay. And a little bit of the old blue here. Whoops, I've got a little brown into that, but it won't matter too much. And again, you can see how sort of watery the paints are, because we're getting a little pool of colour. Because I'm keeping my board's actually at an angle, like it's about 25 degrees. So you can see the colour is actually dropping down the palette, which is very nice. So it just proves that I am painting rather nice wet washes here, and then a lovely green. There we go. We'll put that green in there as well. So there. So now we have these 5 lovely colours. And what I'd like to do is just show you just a semi-mix of these colours, just to see how they mix. So we'll take a drop of that colour there, and we'll add a little bit of that into there, and we'll put a little bit of that down into there, and a little bit of that into there, and a little bit of that over there. And then we've really got, look at all those all those different shades of colour. I'll just lift this up so you can really get a good look at that. Isn't that lovely? You know, all those wonderful colours. And if I move the backwards and forward, can you see how it's just moving on the palette there? And this is what I want to try and get from you folks, is the fact of don't overmix your colours. Don't overmix your colours. And the old thing is, now if I mix these colours, that's it. That's all it will ever become. It'll just become a green. But if we take it and we take all these little bits of colour and we put them together, we can get all these lovely nuances of colour. And they look at that. I mean, it just moves about. I hope it gets you as excited as it gets me. But there, look at that. You know, all those wonderful colours, they're just mixing around. And also the fact that we're painting with a watercolour technique, which really gets me, because I'm a watercolourist, so I love watercolour. So we've got this wonderful opaque medium, but because we can reduce it down with water, it means we can paint it as a watercolour medium as well. So there you go.